When people come back to the university, they say the things I remember about campus here, one is the quad, one is the alma mater statue, and the other is the chimes. My name is Suzanne Wood. I've been on campus since 1966 when I came here for grad school. I was very taken by the fact that a set of bells could be played as a musical instrument. I thought, the university has bells. Why don't I go over and see what they have there? So I hot-footed it over and became acquainted with Albert Marion. He had played the electronic carillon at Berry College in Macon, Georgia. The carillon is now any bell instrument that has 23 or more bells. If it's less than 23, anything between 9 and 22 is considered a chime. So that's why the university system is called a chime or a set of chimes. The bells were out of commission in the 1950s because enough of the cables were broken. Well, they finally, by 1958, had enough money to put all new cables back in. So from 1958 onward, Albert Marion was considered the Chimesmaster. He had a few, occasional students who would come in and help out. And I said, well, I'd love to learn to play these too. And so that was 1971, and I've just never left.
So my freshman year, I went on a tour of the Altgeld Bell Tower, and the Chimesmaster at the time, Sue Wood, was there. So I asked her if there'd be a way that I could get involved or if students were even part of the bell tower, and she said yes, of course. And after I practiced for a couple months on my own, you gradually transition from the practice keyboard to the actual keyboard that's connected to the bells, and then you start performing in concerts, which we hosted every day, Monday through Friday at 12:50.
Well, the very first week I was on campus, over 20 years ago, a friend said, let's do something fun at lunchtime. We went up, and at that point I didn't know Sue, I didn't know anything, but I loved the bells. And then 20 years later, I thought, I'm going to go up to the tower. And I went and I interviewed Sue and talked to her and just hung out. So Sue, being the totally encouraging, welcoming person that she is, said, play. So I started, and I've been doing it ever since.
I had a previous experience with bells at my undergraduate university. We had a very small carillon, and when I first got here, I'd read about Sue, and so just went up one day, told her my experience, that I was interested in playing, and she was, oh yeah, come and play. And so I have been playing ever since then.
In 1920, the classes of 1914 through 1921 all pitched in to donate a chime.
So the chimes were built to accommodate the tune Illinois Loyalty. There were originally 2 less bells, and the student body decided to raise money for the 2 extra bells so that that tune could be played. So they raised the money in memory of Edmund James Janes and the U.S. Military School of Aeronautics to get those 2 bells, and then they could play Illinois Loyalty. So it's kind of interesting. It's like a custom instrument to fit our song. It's kind of unique.
The next class after the 8 classes who provided the bells themselves decided that it was time to make the bells do something other than just beautiful music. And so their senior project was to come up with a Seth Thomas clock system that actually forced those bells to ring certain times according to a clock mechanism that is then set up to play the quarter hours, quarter after, half past, quarter to, and the hour from a different set of cables.
The Seth Thomas clock system originally was all mechanical, that it had to be wound a few times a week, so it's just a giant clock. The 4 bells that are part of the Seth Thomas clock system have outer hammers, and the mechanics of the clock system sort of pulls a cable, and then as it pulls it, it eventually releases it, and that releases the hammer that's on the outside of the bell, so it strikes the bell from the outside. It gives actually a little different tone than when we play.
Albert Marion, he always wanted to add more bells to make this a carillon rather than just a chime, but it would have to have 23 or more bells. One of the companies said that they would be willing to make the upper F natural that we were missing anyway, that would be part of the whole system if we ever went that route. And so they cast that bell, and that was presented to him on the day that he was no longer Chimesmaster at the university. And that bell, because there really wasn't any place to put it, ended up being put out at one of the entrance ways into the upper level of the airport.
When the South Quad Carillon was built, the money, I think, was originally raised to make the Altgeld Chime into a carillon. But they did a structural analysis, and they figured out what kind of steel structure they would have to put inside the tower to support the weight of that many more bells, and they realized it wasn't possible.
For each bell, there's a lever that's attached to the keyboard. So you pull down on the lever, and it's attached to a stainless steel cable that runs the 60 feet up into the bell tower. So when you pull down on the lever, the clapper swings and hits the side of the bell, and it rings.
You have to release it immediately. If you hold it there, it stops the vibration.
The carillons are a little different because they have smaller rods, and the sharps are raised above the natural, sort of like on a piano where you have the white and the black keys. These, they're all in one row, so it can be a little difficult to orient yourself. It took me several months to not hit the wrong note because it's spatially awkward and difficult that these few notes are spaced so far apart.
So I believe we have over 2,000 songs, ranging from Beethoven to Britney Spears to anything in between.
Most of the music that we have, at least before I started playing, was all handwritten by many people from 1920 up to the early 2000s.
Each player compiles their own notebook of their favorite music and their own compositions, their own arrangements.
We do duets occasionally because we can get more in, like one person can play at one end and the other person can play at the top end, and we can do a lot more individually and it make it sound a lot bigger.
Climbing up to the tower is an adventure, but being up there, there's just nothing like it. It's gorgeous, and the vibrations are, they go right through you. One of the most fun things about being in the tower is watching the people who come up and are completely dumbfounded to see what it looks like. Everybody is uniformly. It's got uneven floors, low steel beams, bizarre selection of old paintings, books from the business school. Every concert from the very beginning is logged.
Sue is tireless. She's amazing that she's been doing this for so long. We were encouraged to be creative, to be not just a chimes player, but to be an individual among the chimes players, that we can do our own thing.
There's a magic about Sue Wood. She just has an enthusiasm that has not waned one single bit for 45 years. She made it possible for many people to have access to a really magical experience, and that has been the power of her years as Chimesmaster.
If you're a chimes player at the university or Chimesmaster, you're pretty much incognito. Nobody knows who's up there playing. We sort of forget who might be up there and just let the music waft out over the quad and the rest of the campus.
It's a very personal thing. You always, you notice when someone is playing, but you don't know where it is. You don't know how they get there. The first time I went up there, it was very hard for me to figure out how to find it. So it's this completely mysterious thing, and you really feel like you're contributing weight and tone to whatever's going on.
Maybe it's cliche, but the bells are kind of maybe like a heartbeat for the campus. It's really a special thing for people to be able to be a part of, to go into, to see, and for us as bell players to be able to do that and interact with the campus in that way at the same time.